Hi, it's Paul Bedford here from Retention Guru, and in this session, originally recorded for my website based on the types of questions I get asked all the time, I talk about how we wouldn't measure attrition. I go on a bit. I've done this video so many times. I just don't measure attrition as a percentage. I do think in part of this I mess up with a little bit of the math, but it's the principle that you need to get your heads around why we don't measure attrition as a percentage. If you've got any questions or comments, stick them in the comments section below. Alternatively, you can email me at paul@retentionguru.co.uk and I will get back to you just as soon as I can. I'm often asked about the fact that I focus far more on measuring retention than I do measuring attrition. In fact, I've been quoted as saying, and I did say it, that for me attrition is a secondary measure. And if you're measuring attrition as a percentage of your membership, you actually have no idea what's going on, which has raised a few eyebrows, and that's fine. What I want to do now is I want to explain to you how not to measure attrition. Now that might sound counterintuitive, but it might be you're using this method and I want you to stop because it's not actually helping you understand what's going on in your business. In fact, it could be confusing you more. So let me show you how the industry has gone about measuring attrition for years and why, let me explain to you why I think that's a bad thing. So this is how not to measure attrition. I apologise for the amount of information on this screen at any one time, but we need it all there for it to make sense of what's going on. Let me state this really clearly right from the beginning. This is not a statistical methodology. You won't see it in statistics books for managers. You won't see it in research methods. You won't see it in books that describe how to measure key performance indicators. Not in any scientific ones. What we have here is what I refer to as the traditional method for measuring attrition. So we've got all the months of the year, and we have the members, the total number of members, still members at the end of each month. We've got the number of members who've resigned, and we've got the monthly rate of attrition calculated from that. Now, it's a 5-step process. The first step is begin by calculating the number of members at the end of each month that you have. The second step is to take the number of members at the end of each month, add them all together and divide them by 12, because that represents the 12-month calendar. This calculation will give a club its average member count for the year. And in this example, that's 3,298 members is the average year-end membership. Step 3. Calculate the total number of members who've resigned for the year, simply by adding up all of those members. And in this example, we have 1,100. Step 4. Divide the average member count by the total number of members who've terminated their membership during the year in order to determine the facility's annual attrition rate. So we're going to divide 1,100 by 3,298. The result of this calculation is 33.3%. Step 5, subtract the annual attrition percentage from the ITAGA 1 or 100% in order to calculate the club's annual retention rate. So this is suggesting that the retention is 66.7% because the attrition is 33.3%. I have no idea what 33% attrition means. I don't know what it means. I have some idea of what they think they're evaluating, but it has no statistical measure. It's not a valid measure. All this is really saying is when you add all the new joiners over 12 months to all the members you had at the start of the period, and then divide it by the number of leavers, 33% have a cancellation date in that 12 months. What you don't know is whether they joined in that 12-month period or joined before that 12-month period. You don't know if the 1,100 leavers were from the new member joining or the old members. And what's more challenging is that the percentages per month will vary significantly by the actual size of the club as the club grows and shrinks as members come and go. So you have no idea if they're from your existing membership or new joiners or how long they stayed. To illustrate this, I've kept this as simple as possible. What we have here is the number of members at the end of each month. And in this example, there's 1,000 members. We have the number of members who resigned, and I've actually added a column of the number of new joiners. And what you see here is that you had 1,000 members per month, and the average year-round membership would be 1,000. The total number of members who resigned would be 1,200. And if you divided the 1,200 by 1,000, you would have 83% attrition. Now here's my problem. How can you have 83% attrition if you've lost more members than you actually had? Don't know how that works. And according to this, you've got 17% retention. You've joined more members than you have as your base. You've joined 1,200. You've lost 1,200 and you've only had an average of 1,000. And this is suggesting you've got 9% monthly attrition rate. You could argue you've got 100% attrition because you joined 100 and lost 100. Let's change this slightly. In this illustration, we've got the total number of members at the end of each month, the number of members who resigned, and I've kept that as a constant 100, and new joiners, and I've kept that as a constant 150. Now what you see is that each month the club is growing. So at the beginning of January we've got 1,000 members. Because we're signing up 150 but only losing 100, by the time we get to December, we've got 1,550. But the year-end average would be 1,174. The total number of members who resigned is still 1,200. And if we were to divide the 1,200 by the 174, we'd have 102% attrition. So by now you're probably realizing I am not a fan of this approach or this methodology. Now that's going to be uncomfortable for some of you because some of you have spent years in meetings presenting this number on a weekly or monthly basis and debating it and arguing it, and it goes up and down, and you really can't get a grip of what's going on within your business. And the reason you can't get a grip is because it doesn't mean anything. It has no value to you. I used the example once before. It's like trying to measure the size of a room with a thermometer. A thermometer measures one thing, that's fine, it measures temperature, but it doesn't measure space, it doesn't measure distance. This is wholly inappropriate for trying to measure what's going on within your business. So I hope what you take from this is to abandon this approach and use a much simpler approach, such as just presenting how many people quit this month. If you want to take that a step further, then just calculate how many months of membership each of those members had. And you're well on your way to then being able to calculate an attrition rate. And you can see if that rate fluctuates. So for the time being, just stop doing this. Or the next time you're in a meeting, just say to someone, what does that actually mean? And see if anyone around the table can give a satisfactory description. If they can, I'd be interested to hear.